For 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Chairman Hill, and thank you for all of you joining us here today. I will say that inflation and rising costs is directly impacting people in the heart of the heartland, including in my home state of Iowa. So as opposed to just talking about it, let's get after doing something about it. This situation was made worse by proxy advisor firms and their robo-voting that put millions of Americans' 401k and pensions at risk. This is happening as half of Iowans rely on some type of retirement account to pay for their future, their kids, 429s programs, or simply to buy a home. So let's get to it. Mr. Copeland, are you aware that only 2 firms control approximately 97% of the proxy advisory market, and how does this effective duopoly really limit investors' choices?
Yes, I mean, the percentage may or may not be exactly that, but it's a massive percentage. Over 90% of voting is controlled by the 2 foreign-owned firms, Glass Lewis and ISS. And how does it limit choices? I mean, listen, it's a hard market to break into because it's not a big market where you're going to get venture capital throwing money in it. There's not a huge amount of money in it. They're paid a premium because people want control over the voting, not because it's a great business model. But it also makes it very subject to capture for that reason, because it's not a business that could get a lot of public buyback. No individuals hiring ISS or Glass Lewis. And so they can be sort of captured by these activist forces, the professional activist forces, and they make more money when they're more supportive of this environmental and social activism because the companies pay them to leave them alone, et cetera, et cetera. So.
And I think you're absolutely right here. These are both foreign entities influencing a U.S. market. Mr. Mueller, if investors are 20% more likely to oppose a management simply because proxy advisors recommend it, it doesn't show that these firms wield disproportionate power over the overall investor. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I do, and it's not just correlation. There's evidence of causation. When these firms flip their votes, occasionally they do it. It's rare, but you see that 20% flip right away.
All right, so now that we've kind of laid the base ground for this, let's consider the influence of proxy firms over voting outcomes. I think you would agree, as you just highlighted, that the practice of robo-voting, especially how robo-voting works, is not only troubling, but where investors automatically adopt a proxy advisor's recommendation, silences the First Amendment rights of our retirees. I've got a bill out there. It's called Protecting American Savings Act. It requires the SEC to finalize rules prohibiting the use of robo-voting with respect to votes related to proxy advisors. So, Mr. Copeland, I'm going to come back to you on this. Do you think this would help restore accountability of fund managers? Many of them are handling trillions of dollars in retirement savings?
Yes, as Mr. Copeland said, particularly for many of the smaller administrators, there's no motivation for them to take the time to do an independent review and analysis and actually exercise their fiduciary duties before voting. Instead, they have blind reliance on the proxy advisory firms.
And I would highlight here, it also ensures that this voting is optional, which is important to protect our shareholders, particularly our retirees, from being dragged into these often very social-focused political fights, and allows them to just really focus on getting their retirement. Mr. Coleman, would you
I think
concur?
that's very important to do statutorily. I mean, the SEC's moved that way in guidance, but these proxy advisors came about in part because first the DOL and then the SEC said, well, you've got a fiduciary duty to vote, here's a safe harbor, and it really empowered these firms. And so now, while they've clarified this could always swing back, it could always change. So I think making it clear in statute would be very useful.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to be able to submit for the record the letter here to the American Securities Association that details proxy power proposal abuse and the reform rules that we could go that complement the bill.
Without objection.
I'd like to just, and now quickly talking about the SEC rules. Former Secretary Gensler expanded the definition of solicitation to cover proxy voting advice. Normally, solicitation means directly asking someone for their vote. Gensler went further. He said, even research or recommendations from proxy advisors should count. So just the thought process versus the actual. Mr. Coleman, do you believe that the SEC exceeded their authority by going from asking for it to just implying that people should be able to do this?
Yeah, I mean, the DC certainly just said that.
When they struck it down, you're exactly right.
But that's why it's important for this body to act in this space, I think, because I do think that the proxy advisory firm should be regulated in some form.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would yield back the remainder of my time.
Gentleman from Iowa yields back.